With the continuation of our discussion series on the Band of Brothers, we near the end of the war as Easy Company has entered into the heart of Germany with minimal resistance. With Captain Lewis Nixon as the focus character, we see the trials and tribulations of war and how it has affected him, whether it be behind enemy lines or back home, as well as his personal demons with substance abuse. The demise of the Fuhrer and untimely death of FDR have changed the tones of the war, which inevitably leads to 300,000 German soldiers surrendering in Easy Company's terrifying discovery of Jewish prison camps. Tonight, dogs will be taken, people will be demoted, and heaviness will be in our hearts as we continue our discussion series of the Band of Brothers, Episode 9. Why We Fight. This is a Foxhole production, and you were listening to Just for Flix. What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Patty B. With me, as always, is Mr. B Dog, Mr. Brandon. How we doing tonight, man?
You know, we do near the end of this series, and we come across the episode that I am not afraid to admit I do not care for. This is not the episode. This is the episode actually I remember coming across, and it took me a long time to get to episode 10. Just because I just did not like the episode. I get it. It's setting up for what's about to happen in episode 10. There's a lot of setup, but with this episode, there's a lot of inaccuracies. And I
Wouldn't
get it.
say
Go ahead.
sorry, no. I didn't mean you were going ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
But
My bad.
even there's a lot of inaccuracies in this episode, but not only that, we've seen inaccuracies through the series, but not as bad as what's in this episode. There's a couple, and we'll get into the discussion here, but there are a couple inaccuracies here that are not even like small details.
And they didn't. It's almost like they didn't even try, and it's like this episode has like this weird time loop in it. It feels like it doesn't chronologically make sense.
Yeah.
At least the way I perceived it when I rewatched it. I was just gonna say that it seems like the inaccuracies kind of overweigh this being a filler episode, because I don't think it's a filler episode. I think we do get some uh a lot of character depth in this,
Especially for Nixon.
Yes, for Nixon, and then man, I always forget, it's not Lutz, it's the other guy.
Bacante.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, like that whole scene with the new guy. He's like, "Can't you understand this is the best part of war I've seen?"
Yeah.
Like, you get that, you get that part of it. I do like the turnaround we get from the first shot of the episode to the last shot of the episode. It doesn't make sense, and we'll talk about it more, but it, for what it's worth, and I think what they were trying to think about accomplishing, or maybe just trying to at least make it kind of an episode that can stand out on its own and have its own certain. Because I mean, think about it, they didn't really have episodes prior to this that had that. You start one place and end at the same place kind of thing, right?
No, because here's the thing that you got to remember when it comes to this. Most of the episodes that we've dealt with so far have dealt with battles or operations they're part of and everything. So they're always continuing. You had episode 2 and 3 that's more, well, one's kind of their training and leads to D-Day, and then 2 and 3 are like D-Day on. When you go episode 4, which is Operation Market Garden, and then 5's kind of like another kind of a filler episode, but kind of gives you kind of like Winter's perspective of things so far. Then it goes to the Battle of the Bulge for like 2-3 episodes, and then we come to here. And in this one, I get where you're coming from with that, but I think it's time to kind of talk about the first inaccuracy in this episode. But the way they bring up Hitler's death in this. was a huge inaccuracy. The scene
Way.
that you talk about with this whole scene where they're standing above and they're looking down at the civilians, um, cleaning up the mess, cleaning up all the bombardments that's happened and
They
everything
got
like,
the little quartet playing right there in the
with the
courtyard.
quartet was such a beautiful touch in the whole
Well,
episode.
and it's cool because, like we talk about from the first scene to the ending scene, you get the point of view from the quartet first, and then at the end, it shows the soldiers and it shows, Nixon and, all it yeah, and go ahead, like, you continue what you're saying as far as the main inaccuracy goes.
Yeah. And the episode, it starts off on April 11th, 1945.
Mhm.
Okay. At the when you get the first scene with them kind of going back to like what has happened to this point. Then you flash back to them standing in that building looking down. Then all of a sudden he goes, Hitler's dead.
Yeah,
His death in history did not happen till April 30th. So you're telling me for 2 to 3 weeks, they stood
yeah.
in that stinking thing, just continuing to look down night in and night out, just staring. That sauna must have lasted 2 to 3 weeks to get to that point.
They must have brought in the Titanic's band.
God.
Just played no matter what. Yeah.
But that is a huge inaccuracy here. And it's not a good inaccuracy because it's an infamous because of the man that we're
Mhm.
speaking of, the Führer of Germany during the time, which was not a good person. But just seeing that scene, it was just like, again, there's a huge inaccuracy. The other one, during this episode and Why We Fight, it is often cited for its depiction of the liberated prisoners' emancipated state, which, while powerful, may be exaggerated for dramatic effect. The 101st Airborne Division did discover a concentration camp, but historical accounts suggest that by the time they arrived in April 1945, the most notorious camps had already been liberated by the Soviets, and the Americans' discoveries were often of abandoned, smaller facilities with fewer prisoners. Because they do say that in the episode that
Yeah.
Russia or the Russians were able, or the Soviets did liberate one of the worst ones. Do you know which camp that is? Probably the biggest concentration camp there was,
Well, Auschwitz?
Auschwitz.
Yeah.
They were the ones to liberate that.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
That's
And they did, like we said, we know that they've had experience with concentration camps, but to be the one like this, I get the whole point that it was supposed to show how drastic things were in Germany. And the other part that I will talk about that was accurate about that is how most people actually did not know was actually happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of get some of that. Like you're talking about like how like regular civilians didn't understand what was going on or didn't like turn a blind eye to it essentially. I think the boy in the striped pajamas, I think depicts that perfectly.
Exactly.
Especially when it comes to the families of actual German government, like higher ups. Um, you see what they had to kind of deal with. Man, that's a phenomenal, yeah. That movie's
That's a one. It's kind of like a Schindler's List. It's a one-time watch movie. I've read the book too, so the
yeah.
book's even like it gets more sad.
It's a and what's good about that movie. I mean, it's a short. It's a quick watch. It gets straight to the point. Kind of. It's got a great cast too. I
Yeah,
think.
it does.
Yeah.
Very slept on film. A lot of people should watch that. If you haven't watched it, fans, go check that out. Like I would recommend that movie really well. But yeah, I just feel like with this episode, and it's like we said, I think there have been inaccuracies through this whole series, but in reality, this was kind of the one that gets a lot wrong. Like we've talked about Dyke in the past and how they got that wrong. We talked about Blythe and how they got
Mhm.
that terribly wrong. But this here, it just felt like maybe they weren't paying attention very well, or like some people say, like maybe it was just put in for exaggerated a feeling a little.
Yeah,
Because like the
I think.
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say it seems like they threw kind of caution to the wind when it came to
I agree.
like caring about caring about the accuracies and telling the whole story. I mean, you gotta think about it too. Is like as the watcher when you're watching these, you want them to make it as accurate as possible because honestly, they're starting these episodes off with the actual veterans talking about it.
Yeah.
So when you have stuff like that incorporated in the episode, it's like at the end of the day, I think you're gonna get that in any kind of true story. There's very few true story movies that stick to exactly how it goes down, or just events in general, because I think that's just the just not the manipulation, but just the way show business is. I think, and in general, or whether it be Hollywood or whatnot. But I think they always got to throw in something that even if well, and what was the point of even putting the date of April 11th on? I think that's where we should start with. I mean, because it's like, why do you put that up there and then just already kind of? I mean, it's right at the beginning of the episode, so when you do that, it seems like it just automatically kind of sets the tone or sets like this illusion of like, okay, now I got a time and I'm thinking of what the time is,
Right.
and then you're realizing by the end of it, of when it's announced, that you're like, "Okay, what?" Like, 'cause even when I watched it, I knew the inaccuracy, or at least that one right off the bat, because of because just hearing about it as a kid and whatnot, and history in general, I'm like, I know that he died after his birthday because his birthday is the 20th, isn't it? So, and then when I saw that, and then you're like, "Oh, wait, it's the same day because we're looking down at the quartet, so what's going on here?" Like, "What?"
Right.
Now, do you think that maybe, just maybe, everything that happens in between is a flashback?
It is. Well, all the scenes that we see is supposed to be them like retelling everything, right? But like even like this is where I kind of wanted to get a little bit more context on the concentration camp too before we forget too. The camp shown in the miniseries is called it's a Dacho subcamp called Coffering 4.
Mhm,
Historically, the 101st Airborne Division arrived at the camp on April 28th, 1945, after it had been discovered and partially liberated by another division. So that was their main purposes. Is every time they dealt with the concentration camp, they were kind of the ones that kind of went in there and helped, like make things in order, things like that. They weren't they weren't like that part, but
mhm.
but the But yeah, I don't understand the whole April 11th situation other than what they said is just them being depicted as the day Easy Company enters Thalheim. But that's all I know. Unfortunately, like when it comes to that part, there's really not a lot of anything else that goes with that date. And to
Mhm,
my knowledge, at least, and fans, if you guys
mhm.
know something we don't, please comment below.
Reach out.
Yeah, but yeah, even then, the concentration camp, if that happens in history on April 28th, then again, why are they there on April 11th and having a flashback scene? And then coming back and go, oh, yeah, Hitler.
Yeah, like, what would be the importance of that flashback scene?
Exactly. Then they come back and just say, oh, yeah, Hitler died. And I was like, okay. But I, but
Like,
I,
it's like a Star Wars moment, somehow Palpatine returned.
yeah. but,
Yeah.
but, but let's talk about the things that we actually did like. I agree with you. I enjoyed Nixon's story here. He is the main
Oh,
focus of the story in
and
most
that's
episodes.
probably easily my favorite part. I think Nixon's been one of my favorites throughout this whole series. I think him and Spears are easily my
Yeah,
two
I
guys.
can see that.
Um, no, I love like she took the dog.
The dog. But
I lo I mean, just he's really down in the dumps in this episode. From having marital issues, substance issues, getting demoted
Yep.
from winners, and it's kind of a
He was demoted from the regimental S2 to the battalion S3. Um,
do you think that brings a hindrance in him and Winter's relationship?
no, because when you get to episode 10, I don't feel like that. It's like a
God,
sense of remember how, and we'll talk about in the next episode, how Nixon offers him to come work with him.
that's
You
true.
got to remember that. I do feel like there's something I want to talk about that with him is the whole scene when he talks about how he's never fired a weapon in any of the 3 drops he's been a part of.
Yeah,
Not once has he
not
fired his
once.
weapon. And like even to also talk about it too, I like his personal struggles with the like you talked about with his marriage and everything, but even his alcoholism
Yeah.
is a big part of this episode.
And that whole scene with him and Winters talking about basically him getting demoted, but he's just polishing off a bottle, trying to find trying to find other bottles laying around and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it too is what that recent drop he was a part of at that time.
Mhm,
It didn't go very well.
mhm.
And I love how the whole scene of is how are you supposed to write these parents? How are you supposed to write all of them? And you know how Winters goes like, you write them as what they are, or you write them as they were heroes. And he goes, do you believe all that? And Winters
Not
goes,
one.
yes.
No, I'm just making
Yeah, but like
yeah,
Winter goes, yes, I do. But I feel like maybe that's because I could look at it 2 ways, like how Winter sees it, it's like, he's been a soldier in that realm before, he still does the stuff he does with his group, but I
mhm,
also feel maybe it's, him kind of becoming more of that leader that he needs to be right now. Maybe he is a little disillusioned with it, but I feel like also too, he's been in those shoes before. I don't know how to feel about that, but like that whole scene was really good between the 2 of them. Um, like even how he goes and breaks in to some of the alcohol shops, and then he breaks
mhm.
into that woman's house. Um, that and then the ironic part of it is that woman shows up at the end during their martial law situation,
Oh, yeah.
and he notices her. Um, but like just seeing like his character kind of progress in this episode is really well done. And
It is.
like he was probably like, um, what was it? I love the song. Who the hell are we? I love that song, the little cadence they're singing when they're going to after they're told.
Oh, glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die.
And he says it, yeah, what a hell of a way. The wrong Livingston for this role is just a perfect casting for him. Like,
Man, I think he's easily, I think, one of the best performances of the show. Besides Damian Lewis, obviously, I think as Winters is fantastic. Like, you can't from the leadership to everything that he goes through, just everything in between. But Nixon is gotta love Nixon, man. You gotta love Ron Livingston, I think. Underrated actor.
yeah, the other thing I want to kind of talk about in this episode that I really loved. Well, I love Picante's scene with O'Keefe, which is kind of one of the replacements that comes into play.
Yeah.
Patrick O'Keefe, and then people
It's in
call
the
him Patty. I'm gonna start calling you
yeah,
Patty instead of Patty. It's gonna be Patty
Oberk, or what was the other he kept calling him something else.
O'Brien.
O'Brien, yeah.
I told you it's O'Keefe.
You know how many O'Keefes and O'Briens there
Yeah,
are?
yeah. Like Picante actually has one of my favorite moments in this episode where he
For
talks
sure.
about, you know what, you sit here and you beg for battle, and I have been in that.
Yeah, you don't understand. This is like one of the best parts of war you could be in. You're all full of piss and vinegar, and I just wanna sit here, take a hot shower,
And read my book.
read
Yeah,
yeah, read my book, like, you don't get it, especially, like, after Bastogne, like,
yeah.
getting through all that chaos and
Well, you
what
gotta
came
remember in
afterward.
Bastogne, he was shot too.
Yeah.
You gotta remember that.
Yes, he was.
And to have that scene, and then you see him at the concentration camp scene, and he's like, "Hey, O'Keefe," and he actually says him by name, and O'Keefe is just sitting there like stunned
Yeah.
because
Hey, like, you wanted war, this is what you get,
but
you
I
know?
feel like that was actually like more of an understanding scene. So I
Yeah,
think the
kind of a wake-up call for O'Keefe as well, right?
yeah,
Just to, like, realize, "Oh, like, oh, wow, he wasn't just kinda bullshitting me and just trying to make me, like, belittle me or make me, feel like I'm just picking on the new guy." Like, no, like, he has a point, and this is exactly why. This is why this is what war brings. This is the results of war. That is the results of hatred
yeah,
from war. So, I mean, I just yeah,
like,
it's
and I liked how Picante was just more like, "I get it, take your time," kind of thing, instead of like, "Hey, we gotta go," kind of thing, like, "Let's move." Um, the other part I liked too was Lip Guy, the translator,
yeah.
having his scene because when um one of the prisoners or one of the Jewish men that was held in this camp comes up to him and he starts speaking German, and then they actually find out why they were there. He's like, "Are they prisoners? Are they doing stuff bad?" And then he goes, "No, they're doctors, they're teachers, they're all that." And then he goes, "Juden," and then he's like, "They're Jews." And just to see his facial expression after because he's also Jewish. I remember that. I believe it was episode 1 or episode 2 that he came out. I think it was him and somebody else was going at it with each other. I think it was Goranir. Him and Goranir were going at it with each other um, about that. And then you have him be the one that has to tell them they have to go back in the prison because this is the whole scene that you have the medical officer there going, "We need to cease them eating because they're going to eat themselves to death." And when he has to go up there and tell them that they need to go back inside the camp and then see him how he reacts after, that was such a heart-wrenching film or a shot to see how he goes from that and knows that he doesn't want to say what he has to say to that.
Yeah.
And because and that's why even like Winters comes up and it's like, "You gotta say," and he goes, I can't say that. What am I supposed to say? We don't know what to feel or react to this.
Yeah.
No.
There's so many emotions in the air, and then it's like when they get there, it's like it's one worse discovery after the next, right? Like, there's a really visual part with, I'm assuming, maybe a family member or a really close friend, like, carrying his friend, like, bro, like, it's crazy to think that like, events like that happened, and
And I think that's important when we see it in movies because, we've heard a lot of people talk about how uncomfortable it is to watch movies like this.
dude, and I think that that whole scene is uncomfortable, like, especially, like, that kinda stuff doesn't affect me as much as it might affect other people, but I could totally see other people just absolutely not wanting to watch this because of that, you know?
And I get it, but sometimes we need to be reminded of things of that situation.
100%,
We need to be
100%.
reminded that's the whole purpose of us being taught history. I know a lot of people don't like history. A lot of people don't want to learn things about history.
I loved history growing up. History and English were my bread and butter.
And I major in history now. So that's the whole point for me that I'm looking at it this way. This is a perfect example of why history is so important. We're supposed to be taught history so things never repeat itself. And this is a big situation. I get it why it was in this episode. I get why they wanted to put this in this series. But I just felt like this episode there was just so much going on.
Mhm.
Um but like just some of that stuff like that Tom Hardy is in this episode. I think this is one of his
He
acting.
sure is in this
Oh,
episode.
yeah, he does. Um, that was one of my
Yeah,
favorite scenes. I was laughing. I know you and I
he's
talked beforehand with that scene where he's, having sex with a
very
girl and
very busy in this, very getting
getting
busy in
yeah,
this
he is
episode.
getting busy in this episode, and then Spears walking in trying to get his stuff that he's collected through.
That's one of my favorite, like, funny moments of the funny moment of the episode where Spears walks in and he just, he hears somebody come up and Tom Hardy gets out of the bed and, salutes, and he's just, buck naked. And you would think, especially with a guy like Spears would be, like strict or maybe, set forth some punishment or something like that. He goes, "Hey, have you seen like the other part of where's my set?" Like
Yeah.
to his it's just so funny because it's Spears and because
Yeah.
of the background of who Spears is and he,
And the mystery behind him too.
he's a very no nonsense kind of guy. I'll tell you that much.
Well, like, even when he goes up and he's sending the gifts out, and the guy looks at him, I forgot what he says, but then Spears looks at him with, like, the creepiest grin, and he's like,
Mhm.
"Finders keepers," and then he walks out, I'm like, "Okay," kinda thing, like, "Sure, let's go with that," but, having that this episode, there were good moments, but I feel like some of the bad moments did overrun this episode.
Yeah.
And like we said, we talked about Picante scene. This was actually probably one of my favorite Picante scenes in the whole series.
Mhm.
Other than the noodle scenes, like, this isn't spaghetti. This is just military noodles with ketchup, or from the first
Oh,
episode.
the first episode, yeah.
But like this to me, like, I don't. That's why I said, like, I kind of like that part, but um, Keith, I enjoyed. I like Nixon and his kind of story throughout. There was some good parts of the episode, like, even when they're going into the civilians' houses after the concentration camp is found and going to find food and pretty much stealing the food because they're just
Yeah, they're
like
like and then also, like, the confrontation of, "How did you not know this was going on?" Like,
Webster and
was
the owner.
yeah. Yeah, Webster was I mean, getting very aggressive with that guy and even, calls him the derogatory word for yeah, anyway.
During that time. He pretty much calls them what they are in German at that point. But, like, that's why I said this episode's okay. This is actually kind of my least favorite episodes, and it's not because of, like, the concentration camp scene and all that. I do feel like it was a good scene to add in. I just wish they would have gotten the parts right that they had with the Airborne, what the Airborne's objectives were during those time frames when they found the concentration camps.
Yeah.
Not them being some of them that actually found it, and then, I just kind of felt like that was all rushed. Um, like, if you want to watch a good Nixon story, be my
Yeah,
guest. This is the episode I pitched to you if you want to learn more about Nixon and his struggles.
I agree.
But other than that, it's there. It's
Yeah,
but
quite the I mean, we're right around the corner from ending this, right? It's been kind of a bittersweet we got one more after this and we're done.
Yep, we are done with this
But
one. But I feel like this is a great way to kind of head out of the episode. Fans, let us know in the comments what you guys love about episode 9. What did you guys love about Nixon's story? What do you think about the inaccuracies of this episode? We want to hear those in the comments. Remember to check us out, J4F Podcast, on Instagram and TikTok at J4F Podcast. Also, check this podcast out on Spotify and YouTube. If you like this content and you want more of it, remember to subscribe, hit the like button, and hit that bell notification so you never miss an episode.
hit it.
Without further ado, I turn it over to Patty B to take us out.
Yeah, thank you guys for everything you do. Thank you for being our fans. Thank you, B-Dog, as always, and remember, we do it just for Flix.